Everybody thinks justice is a good idea. Okay, but why? Why do we need justice? Or what is the benefit of having justice in our society? And we're going to look at that in Proverbs today. We'll look at the subject of justice and how it provides law and order within society. These are topics covered in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 23, we read this, says, "An uncultivated field of the poor yields abundant food, but without justice it is swept away." The people who often suffer the most in an unjust society are the poor. When a society is run by favoritism and by bribes, well, the rich tend to fare better than the poor. That does tend to be the dynamic. The poor cannot afford to buy favor, and the rich can. Maybe you've heard it put this way: money talks. You heard that one before? I'm going to tell you, if money's doing the talking, it's not justice. Now, they say money talks, but I got to tell you up front, all my money ever says is goodbye. That's the whole thing with money talking. Now, you can learn a lot about a society by how it treats its most vulnerable citizens. Do the weak, the poor, the widows, the orphans get justice? Are they entitled to justice? Or is justice only for those who can afford a big name lawyer and a long battle of litigation that goes on for years? That can tell you a lot about your society. How does our justice system work? However, while this verse does expose this concept, it exposes the vulnerability of the poor, I'm going to propose a different thought of the meaning of this proverb, which is that even the poor can prosper in a just society. If a society ensures justice, everyone has an opportunity, even the poor. Listen again to the verse, Proverbs chapter 13, verse 23. "The uncultivated field of the poor yields abundant food, but without justice, it is swept away." If there is justice in a society, then even the poor can use their own resources, in this case their field, to provide food for their table. They have an opportunity. But without justice, that opportunity to provide for themselves is stripped away. Honest work is not rewarded in an unjust society. Why should we work when, everything we work for is just going to be taken away by the powerful? That's the mindset that happens when you have an unjust society. And so in this, we see an important purpose of justice. Justice, you might say, is the necessary guardrail for prosperity. Justice ensures that the rules of the game are applied fairly, making hard work and enterprise worthwhile for everyone, not just for the rich and the powerful. Everyone has an opportunity in a just society. And so justice is what makes it possible for everyone to have that opportunity, both to survive, but then even eventually to succeed. Without justice, your society will be in a downward spiral where people's ability to use their own resources, their ability to provide for their own needs, is continually eroded away. That's what lacking justice will do. And so justice provides the opportunity for everyone to work, providing for their own needs. Now, that is a necessity for any society that wants to endure. Okay? It's just a necessity. But that's not all that justice does. What else does justice do? Well, I'm going to suggest this morning what we will see in Proverbs is justice punishes evil. It purges evil from society and teaches people to behave with greater wisdom. Now, this is probably the concept we think of most when we talk about justice. I don't know if you watch any crime shows, you watch any movies, in the end, you like to see the bad guys get it. I mean, you want justice, okay? That's kind of the concept we think of. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 30, we read this, says, "Lashes and wounds purge away evil, and beatings cleanse the innermost parts." Proverbs 21:11, "When a mocker is punished, the inexperienced become wiser. When the one teaches a wise man, he acquires knowledge." And I believe what we see is one of the purposes of justice, and here I'm probably speaking more, in terms of formalized, maybe the court system, but one of the purposes of justice is to punish those who break the law. This is a fairly universal concept. In fact, every nation on earth and almost every society in history has had some form of judicial process, some form of trial, some form of court system, some form of judges that deal with the people who break society's rules. So it's a fairly universal concept throughout history and around the world. The biblical concept is that the righteous standards we live by came from God. I mean, God gave the law in the Bible, and so we see that dynamic. But we also see that God appoints those who govern society. So the judges are those appointed to faithfully ensure that the laws are carried out. That would be the biblical concept of a judge. They carry out the law. They make sure the law is carried out. Judges don't make the laws in the Bible. You don't see that concept. They saw to it that the laws which were made were properly applied to each case brought before them. And actually, the American system of justice, just kind of for our culture, really was designed to follow the biblical pattern. Our judges were not intended to make laws. If you go back in our nation's history, that was for the Congress, and then the president signs it into law. That's the legislative branch and the executive branch. But the judges were to make sure the laws are followed, to enforce, to interpret. And I'm not saying judges have always followed that pattern, but they were supposed to. They were supposed to. Now, in the United States, we are a nation of laws, and we do have judges appointed to oversee the court procedures to ensure the laws are followed and justly served. That is their purpose. And so that fits in with what we see in the Bible. What we see in Proverbs is that the punishments given by the justice system really serve two purposes. Now, there may be more than two purposes. I'm not saying universally that's all there is, but that's all I could find in Proverbs. Okay, we're studying the book of Proverbs, and so we're looking to see what Proverbs has to say about this. And I see two purposes given for us in the book of Proverbs. The first purpose of justice is punishment, and it purges evil from the individual and from society as a whole. Justice involves punishment. Punishment. If you make bad behavior painful enough, people stop doing evil. That's the biblical concept. Or those people who won't stop will be destroyed and removed from society. Now, this is one of those spots where people might ask, do you believe in capital punishment? Well, yes, I do. I think all those people in our capital ought to be punished. That's okay. Yes, thank you. Actually, interesting enough, in Proverbs, it doesn't actually discuss the concept of capital punishment in the book of Proverbs. You can find that concept in other parts of the Bible that are supportive of that. But in Proverbs, pretty much what it tells us is that it's the judge's responsibility, justice responsibility to see to it that the law is carried out. Whatever the law is, whatever the judgment is, it's to be carried out. So, but that is the first concept we would see in these verses, is that justice is for the purpose of punishing those who do evil. And that has the effect, firstly, on that person, so that they will not continue doing evil, but then also on society, so that they will, is a deterrent against them doing evil. And that is the second concept we see, is this deterrent against those who not just were punished, but also those who witnessed the punishment. Okay? Justice is not just for those who are punished, those who committed the wrong. They are punished to deter them. But we also see the concept that those who witness the punishment are deterred from crime. If you punish the fool who broke the law, then it will make the inexperienced wise. The wise man who sees it will learn from it. The people who see the wrongdoer punished will become wiser by witnessing justice, and as a result, they will not want to be punished like that person. Seeing someone punished teaches people not to do the same wrong thing. Now, when I was in grade school, and that feels like it was so long ago, I mean, just like another world, schools have changed. But back when I was in grade school, they would spank you in school. Okay, I mean, they would spank you at school. And if you got in a fight in particular, they would spank you in front of your entire class. It was a public discipline that they would take you in front of the class. And if you were an older boy, they'd have the coach come in and do it, give you your swats. in front of the class. And they did this as a deterrent. You were punished publicly so that the other students would fear and not do the same thing. And no, I never got that whooping in front of the class. I never did. Now, it's not that I was always good, but my mama told me, you behave at school. If you don't behave at school, whatever you get at school, you're going to get double when you get home. And so I wasn't always good, but I wasn't stupid. Didn't want any of that. And so it acted as a deterrent. Okay, that's two things I think people need: a fear of justice. I think they need a fear of God, and I think they need a fear of mama. That'll get you in right there, straighten out a lot of people. So in the biblical concept of justice, if you broke the law, the public scandal of it was part of the punishment. It was part of the punishment. See, punishments that are kept secret are never truly justice. For it to be justice, it has to be exposed. It has to be open. It has to be for everyone to see. And when justice is properly carried out, it has a strong deterrent effect which purges evil from society. The outcome of justice, which I believe is the goal, is for the righteous to rejoice. They should be enjoying society. And for the evildoers to be afraid to carry out the evil that's in their heart. This is Proverbs 21:15. It says this: justice executed is a joy to the righteous, but a terror to evildoers. When justice is being done right, then the people in society that are good and honest people will enjoy it. You'll like it. We like seeing the bad guys get theirs at the end of the movie, right? I mean, we enjoy it. Okay. It's one of the dynamics of human nature. It will be a delight to them to live in a just society where things are fair, where the laws are enforced, and people know they can live without fear. However, for those who are evil, it will be a terror. People who do evil will be afraid of it because of the evil they do. They will be afraid when you live in a just society. If people feel free to do evil, if they are not afraid to break the law, then your society is failing to provide justice. That would be a biblical concept. They should be afraid to break the law. But what if your society is going the other way and how it practices justice? A verse for that, Proverbs 28:4. Those who reject the law praise the wicked, but those who keep the law pit themselves against them. When judges let criminals go without punishment, or the police or the attorneys decide not to prosecute people because even though they've clearly broken the law, they just don't feel like it or don't want to, what they're actually doing is rewarding the wicked. They're rewarding the wicked. They are praising those who do wrong and telling society it's okay to break the law. It is the job of those who administer justice to enforce the law, not reject the law. When this happens in a society, it creates division, where those who obey the law are pitted against those who disobey the law. It creates a division in society. It creates a civil conflict, where you have two camps: those who want the law enforced, those who want justice, they want law and order, and those who don't want the laws enforced, or they want the laws enforced selectively based on the mood of the moment. And by the way, selective enforcement is never justice. If the laws are only enforced against certain people or at certain times, that's not justice. Now, I'm sorry to say, this is probably where our society lands right now, at least to some degree. We are having this conflict, this tension in society over whether or not laws should be enforced. And that is the dynamic we see here. You turn on the news and you will see a nation divided between those who want laws enforced and those who do not. It's a simple boil down the conflict. What this dynamic causes in society is the feeling among many that it's okay to disobey the law. In fact, this is a thought from Solomon. He's the one who wrote most of Proverbs, but he also wrote another book, Ecclesiastes, and so we're going to take a verse from that. Ecclesiastes 8:11 says this: when a crime is not punished quickly, people feel it is safe to do wrong. Not only does justice need to be done, but not only does the law need to be followed, but you need to keep your society from being overrun with wicked people. You must punish crime quickly. quickly. Now, how many of you ever heard the statement, the wheels of justice move slowly? You heard that one? Okay. Well, if it moves slowly, it will foster an attitude of injustice. People will think it's okay. I can get away with it. Does this describe our justice system? Actually, I heard about a thing in California. I guess for a while they decided not to even arrest or prosecute shoplifters. There was, in certain spots in California, and you could just go rob places and they didn't care. And they decided to suddenly crack down on it. And they showed, this was in the news, these two girls who got arrested for shoplifting. They were just crying and upset. How could we be arrested for shoplifting? Well, guess what? The law caught up with you eventually. But see, they thought it was okay because it wasn't being punished. It wasn't being prosecuted. It wasn't being done quickly. Are those who are breaking the law held accountable for their actions with the legally required punishments? And are those punishments carried out quickly? That would be a standard of justice. If you don't have that standard of justice, if you don't carry out justice quickly, then you will have in your society a lot of people running around doing evil, believing they can get away with it. A lack of quick justice will cause your society to face big problems. So what is required? I mean, these are some of the functions of justice, but what's required for justice to function? What are the foundations of any society if you want to have justice? The first thing I believe we would see is necessary for justice is honesty. Honesty. Justice, in order for it to be true justice, must be based on the truth. You need the truth. Proverbs 14:5, an honest witness does not deceive, but a dishonest witness utters lies. Proverbs 14:25, a truthful witness rescues lives, but one who utters lies is deceitful. So this is why when you go to court and testify, I don't know if you've ever been to court. Actually, probably a lot of us have had this experience at some point in our life, having even been to court or watched it on TV. But they make you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? That's what you got to promise. All right. Because true justice, it can only be based on the truth. If it's based on lies, based on false witnesses, it will never be justice. This is one of the tricky parts of courtroom testimony. But the goal of justice, the goal of any court of law, should be to find the truth. Not just to find people guilty, not just to find people innocent, but to find the truth. But I tell you, that's easier said than done. Okay. Proverbs 18:17, we read this. It says, the first to state his case seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. Proverbs 29:9, if a wise person goes to court with a fool, there will be ranting and raving, but no resolution. See, the judge and the jury have the responsibility to listen to all the testimony in order to find the truth. You can't just jump on the first thing you hear. The only thing that should matter in a court of law is the truth. The only thing that matters in the eyes of justice is the truth. What really happened and how does a law apply to what really happened? But if you've ever watched any courtroom TV or you've been to court, you know that isn't always the way it works. People can tell convincing stories. I mean, they can. And it can sound right until you get someone who knows what they're doing to cross-examine them and bring up the evidence and trip them up with the facts. Sometimes it's a lot of work to find the truth in some people's testimonies. Now, if you've watched Judge Judy, okay, I mean, yeah. I mean, she's good at finding the truth. She'll tell you right, quick, or any of those courtroom TV shows. You would also know that there are people who are fools and they just come in and they rant and they rave and they never get a word of truth out of them at all. Those people exist. It's kind of what we're seeing here in this proverb. See, there's a lot of people that know they wouldn't know the truth if it slapped them upside the head. And there are people out there like that. Their whole life is just one lie after another. And they are in such a state of foolishness and their bad behavior has been rewarded so many times, they believe if they rant and rave, they just expect to get their way. And then someday they get before Judge Judy and surprise, surprise. or a real judge. It doesn't work that way. Justice can only be served when they have sorted through the facts and get to the truth. And that should be the goal of any legal proceeding, to get to the truth. That's where we find justice. Furthermore, another requirement of justice is impartiality. Impartiality. Proverbs 18:5, we read this: "It is not good to show partiality to the guilty, denying an innocent person justice." Proverbs 24, picking up in verse 23, "These sayings also belong to the wise. It is not good to show partiality in judgment. Whoever says to the guilty, 'You are innocent,' people will curse him, and nations will denounce him. But it will go well with those who convict the guilty, and a generous blessing will come to them." Justice, for it to be justice, it must be impartial. It must be impartial. Justice cannot exist where the judge or the people show favoritism. Justice is only done when the truth is exposed and the law is applied regardless of any personal feelings or social status. Doesn't matter the mood of the society today. If that changes it, it's not justice. If a guilty person is let off easy because their judge or the jury feels sorry for them, what we see here is they are denying justice to the innocent person that was violated by their crime. If you go easy on the guilty, you are denying justice to the victim. I fear we've heard a lot about that in the news lately, about judges maybe who let criminals out of jail, sometimes without any bail or any punishment. Maybe you heard about one recently that made the news. There was a criminal that the judge let out of jail with no bail, and he went right out and killed a young woman on a train for no reason. He just slit her throat. It's been in the news. How does society feel about that judge right now? Not too fond, right? We're not too happy with this guy. Or actually, it was a lady. See, it says in this verse, the verse we just read, that the judge who does that will be cursed by the people. If you're a judge and you're not administering justice, you're letting people off, the guilty go free, you will be cursed by the people and denounced by the nation. And that seems to be what we're seeing in society. It's exactly what we read in Proverbs. On the other hand, the judge who punishes the guilty will be blessed. I don't hear anyone complaining about judges who faithfully administer justice, who are honest and impartial in their court proceedings. Hear any complaints about those guys? They're the ones everybody wants. Not the criminals, but the rest of us. This is all important because the job of justice is to separate society based on people's character shown through their conduct. Proverbs 21:8, we read this, says, "A guilty one's conduct is crooked, but the behavior of the innocent is upright." The courts of men cannot judge your heart. They can't see what's inside you. They must judge your behavior. See, laws are not made for what you feel. They're made for what you do, your behavior. If you're an innocent person, then you will show that in your upright behavior. And if you're a guilty person, you will conduct yourself in a crooked manner. How can you tell the innocent from the guilty? By their behavior. Did they do it? People will reveal what is in their heart through their actions. And you will see that fairly quickly if you watch closely enough. You can see a person's character in how they respond to judgment from the court. And this is an interesting thought. Proverbs 14:9 said, "Fools mock at making reparation, but there's goodwill among the upright." An upright person will always be willing to do what is right, even if that means having to do something to make amends to a person that they have been judged to have wronged. But the foolish person will mock the idea of paying what they owe to the person that they've wronged. Now, I used to work in the legal system. Something I learned that was an interesting thing to learn is that the courts will order criminals to pay fines and restitution. There's usually that goes along with whatever judgments they get from the court. Or if you have a lawsuit against someone, you can win your lawsuit and get a judgment from the court that they must pay a financial amount. Getting that judgment, getting that order from the court that they must pay, doesn't always mean that they pay it. Many people refuse to pay what the court orders. And so that money has to be extracted from them through collections. Now, maybe you've heard of deadbeat dads, okay? Guys who were ordered to pay child support and didn't pay. Okay, that kind of a concept. Well, they're not paying what the court ordered. But that can happen with any people who owe payments that the court has ordered. Any type of fine that the court has imposed, any type of judgment they have opposed against them, whether criminal or civil, it takes time for them to pay it, and many decide not to. What we see here in the scripture is that you could tell by the way a person is in terms of their honesty and integrity by how they react to what the court says they owe. If they mock it, that speaks poorly of them. That says they don't have integrity. They don't have respect for the law. And so one of the goals of all this is honesty and integrity, not allowing any impartiality. You want to get to the point of judgment, but you also want to make sure that you are not punishing the innocent. Okay? You want to punish the guilty. That's a part of justice, but part of justice is also to not punish the innocent. You want to acquit them. Proverbs 17:26, we read this: "It is certainly not good to find an innocent person or to beat a noble for his honesty." See, justice, for it to be justice, it must punish the guilty, but it must also never punish the honest or the innocent. Our society actually has a concept of this, that a person is innocent until proven guilty. I suspect that would line up very well with biblical teaching and is outlined in Scripture. Justice is never served by punishing an innocent person. That does not serve justice. And we take great pains in our society to make sure that doesn't happen. We should. That's right. Now, does this ensure justice will always be served? Okay, we've looked at the biblical principles of what justice is to do and what, here in Proverbs and some foundations for what's necessary to make justice happen. But does that mean justice will always be served? And the answer is no, unfortunately not. I think we will see in society there are many times where justice is not served. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 22, we read this. It says, "Insight is the fountain of life for its possessor, but the discipline of fools is folly." A wise judge or a wise jury will work to ensure that justice is done. Now, that may be convicting the guilty or it may be acquitting the innocent, but they will work to make sure justice is done. But a judge who is a fool or a jury made of fools, then their attempts of discipline will be nothing but foolishness. Your justice will only be as good as the people overseeing its administration. Sorry to say it, but people oversee it, they can go wrong. Also, you may have seen this, a wise attorney with insight might be able to get their client off whether they're guilty or not. It pays to have a good attorney. That's the other thing I learned when I was working in the legal system. People who hire a good lawyer always get off easier. Doesn't matter how guilty they are. They may have committed the exact same crime. If you hire a good lawyer, you'll get off easier. Every time. Problem with that is it's not justice. Justice would punish everyone guilty equally. Now, ultimately, our hope for true justice will never rest in the human court system. Okay, now I'm giving you the outline. These are things we see that will make your courts just or make your society fair. But even the best judiciary system can sometimes get it wrong because it's run by people, and people make mistakes. People can be wrong. So our trust must ultimately rest in God's justice. God's justice. Proverbs 26:27, we read this: "The one who digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever rolls a stone, it will come back on him." See, in the end, it's God who works to make sure people get back what they dished out. He's the one watching. We kind of looked at that a couple weeks ago. You may think that you're getting away with something, and the justice of mankind may have failed to stop you. But rest assured, the day's coming when God's justice will catch up with you. There's a lot of talk in the news about, what people committed, what crimes. I'm going to tell you, I hope they get exposed. I hope they get convicted. I hope they face justice if they're guilty. But I can rest assured in this, they will not get away with it. Because someday they're standing before the judge, and he's going to hold them accountable. God is patient. He is long-suffering. He allows time for repentance before his final judgment falls. But understand, in the end, God will impose justice. Nobody's getting away with anything. And what we see in this verse is the concept, I think, that God has built justice into creation. Just as surely as he has built in the law of gravity, or just as surely as he built calories into our food. Wish he hadn't done that, But sooner or later, justice will catch up with you. You keep doing wrong, sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you. So here's some advice from Proverbs on the pursuit of justice, and just some food for thought. Proverbs 25:8, chapter 25, picking up in verse 8. Don't take a matter to court hastily. Otherwise, what will you do afterward if your opponent humiliates you? Make your case with your opponent without revealing another's secret. Otherwise, the one who hears will disgrace you, and you'll never live it down. Proverbs advises us, don't be quick to take people to court. Don't be so happy. Because you can't guarantee that justice will always be served. You can't guarantee you're always right. What if you get to take them to court and they win? That happens sometimes. Or what if by going to court, you start revealing other people's secrets in order to win your case, and it costs you more than the case was worth? Interestingly, Jesus gave similar instructions in Matthew chapter 5, verse 25 and 26. He said to avoid going to court. Try and settle out of court. And basically, this concept is seen in both passages. You are better off with dealing with people out of court, coming up with a fair settlement that didn't require you going before a judge where you might be embarrassed or publicly lose. Try and keep it off the books if you can. Make peace. Work it out if you can. Now, if you go to court, you might lose. But let me tell you, even if you win, just like I mentioned a moment ago, that doesn't mean the person who lost is going to obey the court's order. You can sue someone and get a judgment against them. You can pay a lot of money to attorneys and still never see a penny of what that person owes you. That's possible. So it's often better to work things out with time, without spending the time, the expense, and the risk of going to court. Now, we as a church had an issue a while back. Maybe some of you remember. I know it's so long ago, but you might remember we decided we were going to put in some AstroTurf. Okay? And the guy came and he did a lot of work and he got things ready, but then he said, I need the rest of the money. We made a down payment, but then we were going to pay the other half when it was done. Said, it's very expensive to get the turf. I'm giving you a good price, which, okay. I need the money in order to buy the turf so I can put it in. We paid him the money. 2 years went by before we finally got the turf. Now, a lot of people said, let's sue him. Problem is, if he don't have property to attach, suing him doesn't do any good. They just hit the road. You never get anything. Now, we were patient. We were Christ-like. We tried to work with him. We did file some legal things, but not suing, but just honest, this is what's been happening. Let the authorities know. And in the end, we have our AstroTurf. Okay? The Lord provided. And I'm grateful the Lord provided. But we did kind of follow what we see here in Proverbs. We did not rush to court. Because a lot of times that doesn't work out. We're warned about it. Furthermore, we're told this. This is Proverbs chapter 24, picking up verse 17. It said, don't gloat when your enemy falls, and don't let your heart rejoice when he stumbles, or the Lord will see and be displeased and turn his wrath away from him. God doesn't like it when you're celebrating someone else's loss, even if they deserve it. Okay? Even if they're a bad guy, God doesn't like it when you're celebrating their loss. God likes you to show grace, just like he does. He wants you to develop that Christ-like character. So The warning is that if you gloat over your enemies when they're facing justice, their day finally came. If you do that, God just might go light on their sentence in response to your boasting. What we need to do is leave retribution in God's hands and focus on us keeping a Christ-like character. Be like Jesus. Don't be celebrating when someone else is getting punished, because that's not what Jesus did. Don't let your heart get so wrapped up in desires for revenge so that bitterness takes over, because I'm going to tell you that bitterness in the end will only cost you. Don't let that happen. Now, finally, we need to understand and recognize that many of the people we share this world with simply cannot comprehend true justice. Okay, they cannot comprehend true justice. This isn't a matter of culture or matter of education. It's a matter of spiritual blindness. They can't see it. Proverbs 28:5, we read this. It says, "The evil do not understand justice, but those who seek the Lord understand everything." Wisdom begins with fearing the Lord, with seeking the Lord, with knowing the Lord. That's where we gain understanding. Those who seek Him will eventually understand justice. It will become a part of their character. But those who do evil, those who want nothing to do with the Lord, they cannot understand justice because they don't understand the source of justice. It's a blind spot in their life, something they just cannot comprehend. The spiritually blind will always have areas of justice they cannot see. And it made me wonder the question, how many lawyers suffer from spiritual blindness? All of them, but okay. That's a little harsh. Of course, all judges were lawyers, right? That's how they work up the ladder. Don't expect the unredeemed people of this world to have spiritual insight. The spiritual insight needed to provide godly justice. They just don't have it. It simply won't happen. Proverbs 29:26, we read this: "Many desire a ruler's favor, but a person receives justice from the Lord." We want good government. We want government that provides justice. We want a court system that provides justice. But understand, ultimately, our source of true justice is the Lord. He's where we're going to get true justice. Not from the courts, not from the government. This may be a surprise. Our politicians are not going to provide us true justice. Okay? It's not going to happen. We should expect our rulers to act justly. We need to hold them accountable for that, for honesty and integrity. And we want our courts to act that way. But the final authority is the judge. He's the one who's going to ensure justice. He has justice worked into his laws in creation. And he does, we see in history, both in Scripture and in the world, that he does sometimes intervene to institute momentary justice. There are moments where the bad guy gets his, and it's clear God has intervened. But we should always keep in mind that his final court has not yet convened. We read about that in the book of Revelation. The day is coming when everyone will stand before the throne, where he will take his seat, and the records will be examined, and the books will be opened, and the Lord will pass judgment. Every person will pass before him. No one will get away with anything. Every person that's ever been a part of creation. And see, I have good news, or for some this may be bad news, because it depends on where you stand in your relationship with him. When God holds court, justice will be served. And what you will find on that day is justice must be served. And all of us deserved condemnation. No one is going to stand there before God and say, "Hey, God, here I am. I'm perfect. I never did anything wrong." Not going to happen. All of us deserved condemnation. And that is why Jesus came. See, we think about Jesus coming to save us, and he did. But Jesus also came to fulfill all righteousness, to serve justice. God is just and must punish sin. And we were weak, we were helpless and unable to save ourselves. We had already fallen into that trap. We deserved his judgment, and we could not pay the debt we owed, the restitution that was rightfully amounted to us. So God sent his son Jesus to pay our price. Jesus came. He went to the cross. He died for our sin. He rose from the dead, and he offers us his righteousness. He took our sin to the cross so we could have his righteousness. Now, it's not that God just says, well, it's okay that you sinned. I don't mind. No, that's not what God said. You want to see the price of sin? Look at the cross. But God paid the price. It had to be paid. Righteousness demanded it be paid. And so Jesus paid it for you and for me. It's been paid. And so when we get before the throne of God, God will administer justice. But I got good news for those who come to Jesus. Justice has been served. God paid the price so he could also show mercy. It's free, it's open, it's available. To prepare for that day, you must come to Jesus. I'm going to tell you, God has offered you a plea bargain. You want to take this one. Okay? This is the one you want to take. The deal is you trade places with Jesus. He takes all your sin, you get all his righteousness. And then when you stand before his throne on Judgment Day, he doesn't see your sin because it's been paid. It's finished. It's done. What he sees is the righteousness of his son. Now, if you haven't done that already, I want to tell you that's what you want to do today. You want to put your faith in Jesus and receive the offer he's made, to receive the forgiveness he has, to receive him paying the price of what you did wrong. That's where you can get ready for the day of justice. Thank you for watching this video. If you live in the greater Phoenix area, we would love to have you come and worship with us in person any Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. The Meadows Baptist Church is located at 3701 West Beardsley Road. That's the side road of the 101, just west of 35th Avenue. We would love to have you pop by as we celebrate Jesus together.